Fellow Zimbabweans, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. My name is MJ. I'm a Zimbabwean. I would like to reflect on my feelings about Comrade Robert Mugabe's death. So I'm not going to talk as a politician because I'm not, and I'll never claim to be a politician. Now, the time before burial is very important in my culture. And for me, the most important person are the daughters-in-law. And in my family, the most important daughter-in-law for me is my Garikai. She becomes very active and she takes a role very well and effectively. Now, during the mourning period, the daughters-in-law make sure that everybody is fed, watered. Sometimes the sons-in-law also help in cooking sadza because sadza is cooked in massive containers. But the daughters-in-law, they work out, it's almost like driving a car. They work out the temperature of the mourners. And if they feel that the mourners are crying too much, then she will collect all the daughters-in-law and come up with a sketch to make people laugh, but most of it will be reflecting on the life of the deceased. And if she feels that we are now talking too much and laughing too much, then she will bring again her troupe and make us remember sad things about the deceased so that we stop joking and laughing and we start crying. I think my culture must have something in common with Bjorn, who says that when emotions are high, the thinking goes down. So daughters-in-laws, they make sure that the balance is maintained right through the mourning period. Now, I would like to think a bit about Independence Day. I was in Zimbabwe, and I remember people running and dancing in the streets and carrying a cockroach, majongwe. Jongwe is the sign of ZANU-PF symbol. So they were flinging around, flying these poor birds around. But it was a moment of immense pride, and I think I internalized that in me. Just the pride that you don't have to sit back when things are going wrong. You have to do something about it. And then after independence, some years later, things started going downhill. And my heart broke. Some people say that things began to get bad when Mugabe started losing at elections. And that triggered off something in him. Now, we have to remember something, that when people go to liberation war, they lose their sense of fear, because otherwise you can't fight a war if you are scared. And before all that happened, so this fear, the sense of fear would have triggered fear of loss would have triggered other losses. Now I'm thinking about the loss of his brother, whom I understand he was very close to. And at that time when he lost his brother, his father abandoned them. And it's very interesting to know what he did with his anger about his father abandoning him. And some of it, I think, will be linked to what he did with the tribe where his father went. Now, the loss of that loss he was scared of would have also triggered the loss he experienced when he was arrested. Because the loss of your independence is quite a big loss. And I don't know whether people really understand what it is like. I can compare it with my own experience of loss of independence, which happened sometime. I went into conflict with my employer then, that was the Prairie, and I felt that they treated me so badly that I became very angry about it because the fear of losing my home when I hadn't done anything wrong. So, being a psychotherapist, I learned that if you talk about something, it means that you're not going to act it out. So I talked about my anger and what I could do with my anger. But the police and the legal system see talking about it as intent. So it takes a different angle. And with that, I was arrested, and they threw me into a psychiatric ward claiming that I was mad. Fortunately, the doctors came to see me and they discharged me the same day and said that I wasn't mad, I was just angry. And they were convinced that I wasn't going to act out on my anger. Then 2 weeks later, the Prairie again got me arrested. And this time I was put in police cell, and I felt an immense sense of helplessness. There was the loss of freedom in that I was locked up, but with that, they told me that they felt that I was a danger to other people and I was a danger to myself. So considering that they were worried about me being a danger to myself, they locked me up. They refused to give me insulin. I'm diabetic. I take one injection in the morning and the other injection in the evening. They only allowed me one injection, which meant that the insulin is supposed to bring down my sugar levels, and my sugar levels are supposed to be below 10. But my sugar levels while I was in police cell went up to 20, just because the nurse said that she wouldn't know what to do with me if my sugar levels go up. So that happened again the following day, that my sugar levels again shot up to over 20. So, and then I was being treated for breast cancer and I was on medication. They refused to give me my medication and they told me that it expired. But the day I left, the doctor looked at the prescription. The medication wasn't expired, but they chose to do that. And this is in UK, at this day and age. Then the other thing they did was that they refused me bail and said that I had to wait until I go to court. So my daughter had a baby who was born prematurely and had been in hospital for 10 weeks because she wasn't well. And she had just come out of hospital. So the first week I stayed with my daughter for the whole week. And then after that I used to go to her house every Wednesday and stay the night so that my daughter can have time to actually rest and sleep. But that week I couldn't go because I was arrested and I was lying in police cell where the police were torturing me on the pretense that they were looking after me. On Thursday I went to court and I was given bail to go home. So I was released on Thursday evening. I thought of going to my daughter, but I decided that it was pointless because it was already evening. I would go the following day and stay the night. Then, unfortunately, that Friday, the following day, I woke up to a call from my daughter in utter distress. Her baby had died in the night. She died of sudden death, infant sudden death syndrome, which used to be called cot death. I don't know whether you understand the anger I felt, that I wasted my time imprisoned for no good reason. And now my granddaughter had died. I was so angry. So sometimes I try to imagine what it was like for Mugabe when his son died and he was in prison and he was not allowed to go and bury his son. Because to me, I don't know what I would have done in that police cell. I think they would have had a good reason for arresting me then. But anyway, it's trying to understand what people go through and the impact of that to any future relationships around helplessness, around loss or fear of loss. Now, with Mugabe also there is the issue of the liberation war. Yes, we celebrate that he was a hero and so forth, but I don't know whether we understand what war takes out of people, especially the emotional impact of war. My youngest brother went to war. He was 15 years old, and that was soon after my father died, and he left soon after that. So I don't know whether it was a reaction to that or he chose to just go. We never heard anything about him or heard whether he was spotted anywhere. And then after independence, when the war was over, he came. We never spoke about what happened to him during the war. My brother, when he came back, he joined the army, and he went up the ranks and became a major in the army. And through all that time, I never saw my brother even in the army uniform. He was out of Harare, and when he came into Harare, he would make sure that he doesn't wear his army uniform. If he came on duty, he will change his uniform or even go and buy a new set of clothes so that by the time he visits his relatives, he's not wearing his uniform. So I don't know what that meant. But for me, it made it difficult for me to even ask him about what happened when he went to the Liberation War. And my brother died in 2001. At his funeral, of course, as I said, my Gary, my Murora, my daughter-in-law was very active there. And she was so active that I was so distressed. And I remember Comrade Major Max, who was my brother's friend, telling people that there's no way I can speak at his funeral because of the level of distress I was in. And my family telling him that that could never happen. There's no way she cannot speak at her brother's funeral. So at the end of the funeral, I sat down with Max, and I thought this is my last chance to ask anything about my brother's experience in war. And Max told me that when Obadiah came to join them, he was the youngest, one of the youngest boys. And he told me a lot of stories about what happened, the funny ones, but not the serious ones. And I said to him, I feel so bad that I never asked my brother about the Liberation War. And Max told me that there was nothing I could have done because he wouldn't have said it. And he said even between the two of them, they had a specific place they would go to. You know, in the Hatfield, there are areas with the balancing rocks. So they would go and sit on those balancing rocks, bring their beer with them, sit there and talk about their experience. And the minute they leave that area, they never talked about it again. So for me, it's thinking about what happens to traumatized people, because the war would have traumatized people. And yet, we take the leaders who have gone through all that trauma and ask them to lead the country. They don't get any treatment for trauma. So what happens when they get triggered? Because you get triggered, something sets you off. But if you are in charge of the country, you still carry on as if everything is fine. So that is one thing I keep saying, that we really need to think about it. Because some people feel that when they bury Mugabe, they are going to bury all the bad things with him. We have turned him into a monster. And maybe at some point we also need to understand that he was a human being with his vulnerabilities, in the same way that we all have our vulnerabilities. Now, it is a fact that if somebody is victimized, the minute you are victimized, the perpetrator in you is born. So each time you become a victim, you need to keep your eye on what you're doing with your aggression, because being a victim, it does evoke a lot of aggressive thoughts in you. But what do you do with that aggression is what we need to understand. Yes, some people are surprised that he was a hero and he became a tyrant, and surprised about that. How can you be surprised about that? If somebody is a victim, he's likely to become a perpetrator if they don't get treatment about that. And there's something called identification with the perpetrator. So some people say he's now worse than during Ian Smith regime. That is the point I'm trying to make. When you bury something, it might think that, no, I haven't been buried, I've been planted. So let's take a grain of maize. You dig a hole and you put it in there and you think, okay, that's it, I've buried it. And then soon you'll find that a plant is growing, and when it grows, you end up with a cob. How many grains of seeds are on a cob? So a small problem might grow to be a big problem. So today we might go and bury Comrade Mugabe. We have to check what are we burying. And then we are already complaining about the next president. But the fabric is still the same fabric. Nothing is different. We haven't dealt with that. What I can say is that Mugabe has left us holding an elephant. Now the elephant is too big for one person to hug it. So all of us, we are holding different parts of the elephant. Some people are holding the legs, some people are holding the ears, some people are holding the tusks. So the person holding the tusk, the ivory, might think, I'm the blessed one, I've been given the riches. But there is aggression behind the tusk, because it can kill you. And then the person holding the leg can think, okay, I'm carrying the strength, and be pleased with that. But in that strength, there's a vulnerability which other people might experience. You can crush, an elephant does crush with his feet. You can kill. And then you will have some sad sort holding the elephant's butt and thinks that they've got the bad deal, because the butt does nothing except produce poo. So you're holding on to it and poo is just dropping all over you. You might think that you have been given the toughest and worst thing as you smell the poo dung, the dung on you, the elephant dung on you. But in that elephant dung, there's some richness. If you can just withstand the smell, you can actually use the dung for something productive. So what I'm saying is that Mugabe is presenting with good, but if you're holding too much of his good, you lose out on learning lessons about what is bad. And if you throw away what is bad, you lose lessons of what was good in the badness. Now, in his misuse of power, there's a vulnerability we failed to acknowledge. And we need to think about that. It is very important. Now, one of the things I do is I teach psychotherapy, group analysis in Rwanda. And the thing I admire the Rwandans about is how they've got hold of the pain of Rwanda and are dealing with it. You have children who are now in universities who don't have any families at all. Some would have come from a large family, but the whole family was wiped out, and they are the only ones surviving. And Rwanda is taking so much care of its children by creating little families where they can have that sense of belonging, where they can deal with their pain. They are asking people to come and teach so that they can deal with the pain in Rwanda. Maybe we need to think some more. Zimbabweans are very traumatized, and we need to deal with that. It doesn't matter how much money we get, how much money we go and plow, and how much we can improve the land which was taken by people who don't know how to farm. We can deal with that. But until we deal with the pain, we are going to just rewrite history. We identified with him. What happens to that identification? Do I suddenly think, okay, on independence, I was so close, I was so proud, I feel so confident, and now I'm ashamed of being Zimbabwean? No, we don't do that. we still identify. In Zimbabwe, we say, you don't throw away somebody just because of the way they are. You support them and you help them. And that is all I can say. Comrade Mugabe, Gushungo, rest in peace. Thank you.